Another topic I definitely would like to cover today is related to global variables. I don't know if I should start from blank list like this. Let's just do this again. Just erase everything and say include IO stream, right? Then we can say int main. I routinely type those things in because this is where everything begins, right? Return 0 indicates everything's okay. And then we can have some other function like void, I don't know, foo, right? And it does something else. And sometimes I just have those empty placeholders to functions that I would like to use. But we say that if we create integer x equals 0 and integer y also equals 0, we call these things local variables, right? Any variables that are highly visible, being declared inside the function, and it's quite obvious, we call them local variables. And of course, when we go to computer memory, what we end up is that they will be placed in the stack memory, and every function gets its own little stack frame before it gets to execute, and that stack frame is placeholder for things that the function needs to execute, including, of course, local variables. Now, this arrangement of the possibility, and of course we can still do this, right? We can still say that when you use functions, it's easy to connect between them. You can just basically make a function call like this. Let's just put this into perspective and say this is a function call, right? Whereas over here, this is what it's called a function definition, because it fully defines what this function does from the beginning to its ending. Okay, so when you have your function definition, we can start making function calls, and this approach is called procedural programming. Okay, so originally programming has started as basically entering some machine codes into computers. And those machine codes are very difficult to deal with because they're pretty much just binary patterns. Never mind hexadecimal patterns, just binary patterns which are basically long sequences of zeros and ones, and it's just basically tough kind of environment to do meaningful things in that kind of situation. So the decision was made, hey, we can actually use a higher level language with all these variable names, but still even better version of that arrangement is that when all of the executable code is placed inside functions, and functions can call one another. This is called procedural programming, right? Procedural programming. So what procedural programming really means is that use functions or as placeholders for computations, right? For computations on one side, and then use global variables as a possible way to store program data, right? So, for example, to demonstrate, let's get rid of this full thing and say, try something like this. std cout, right? like what is your age? Okay, that's, I think, one of the examples from our book. I can print the statement, and then I can say integer variable for the age, and say age, right? It seems like a good choice for the name. I can even initialize it with 0 to begin with, and then I can use the counterpart of cout, which is sin, which stands for character input, and use the other shift operator, which is like right shift, this way, and enter age as input, and then I can say std cout and print you are this many years old, right? So something like that, and even print new line, part of that output. Okay, so the program prints the prompt, then waits for user input from standard input device, and then says you are this old. Okay, all right. So let's try compiling this. Okay, let's try running it. Right. What is your age? Okay, my age is 15. Okay, and then, oh, again, it quickly disappears, which is a little annoying. By the way, it should not be the need for, if I control C, if I go to CPP shell, you know, if it becomes, oh, still not available. All right, I just wanted to maybe essentially copy and paste it there, but no problem, right? So of course I need this cstdlib, which gives me access to system, which I will ask to say execute pause command for me and make sure that you stop before we get out of here, right? So let's rebuild that. So once again, take a look at my program, right? So the latest addition was this cstdlib, and then pause, and then a return. So I built it, so I run it. What's your age? 50, right? You're 50 years old. Okay, perfect. All right, so it works. So the idea of procedural programming, and by the way, the second name for it is structural programming, procedural programming or structural programming. It doesn't prohibit you from doing this, making your age a global variable. Instead of local, use a global variable. Okay, so all that just happened is that I took this variable declaration, creation of my variable, from inside main, okay, and placed it in what we call a global scope, okay, global variable. I can say it, global variable that lives in global scope. Let me say a few words about the scope thing. Scope is a term that we use to describe visibility of variables. Remember when we had two functions, like print greeting and main, and both had integer value in them, there was no conflict because the visibility inside the body of the function is just that. Everything that happens inside main remains visible and accessible only in main. In fact, the variables that we create inside main, if we have created any variables, as soon as main exits, they're destroyed because values on the stack are temporary and exist only for the duration of the function call execution. As soon as the function call is over and we return, the stack memory is returned back to the system and local variables are destroyed. Unlike global variables. So let's select this and I'll use my notepad because it has like bigger font right there. And I'll use even bigger, like this maybe, like huge, right? And essentially try using it here. I'm still adjusting to the way we do things here. It's a little larger, but not very impressive. I hope it's readable when when someone is trying to watch this video online. Okay, so anyway, we said like back to the drawing board, and we said that when this program loads into memory,